Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Susan Demas, the executive editor of Lincoln Square, and I'm so pleased to have someone I've known for many years on the show, Senator Gary Peters of Michigan. Thank you so much, Senator. I appreciate it.
Great to be with you, Susan. Great to see you. It's been a little while, so it's great to be on your program. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we last saw each other at the Mackinac conference
Yep.
about a year ago. Yeah. Well, Senator Peters really needs no introduction, but he is the senior senator of Michigan, my home state. He has been ranked the most effective U.S. senator, I think, for 3 terms running the um, if, from the Nonpartisan Center for Effective Lawmaking. And he's also been a state senator, a congressman, and been in the Navy Reserves. And soon we'll be on to something new because he has decided that he is not running for reelection in 2026. And I think we'll probably get to what's going on there. But first, I think that it would be appropriate to start with the budget bill, since that was pretty much the only thing that Republicans wanted to take care of this session. It's been kind of a slow start, but Senator, you've served in both houses of Congress. You have voted on hundreds or thousands of pieces of legislation. So can you just give us a sense, how does this gigantic budget bill compare to other pieces of legislation that you voted on before?
Well, it's we like to say it's the big bad bill. Is that what you're referring to? The big bad bill that
I suppose so.
we've heard other descriptions of it, but I think it is bad. I mean, when you when you look at what happened in the legislation in terms of cuts to some of the most vulnerable people that we have in our society, significant cuts to Medicaid. It's been estimated that close to 12 million people across the country are going to lose health care. And in my home state of Michigan, we're talking about several 100,000 people who rely on health care right now are going to lose it. We also have food assistance that is also going to be taken away from millions of people across the country. It's going to raise the price of groceries and basic necessities for people across our country. And then you're also seeing cuts in energy production, for example. If you look at the investments that were previously made to expand clean energy production across the country, and put it in perspective, most all of the new energy that's coming onto the grid right now is clean energy projects as a result of investments that we have made. And those are all going away. And that's at a time where we're seeing energy use increase dramatically with artificial intelligence and all of the emerging technologies coming forward. And so what is that going to mean? It's going to mean higher energy prices for all Americans. So costs are going to go up. It's going to be inflationary in that respect. Also, the fact that it creates a huge deficit, a big deficit even larger. And a large deficit is bad because that means interest rates are going to be higher than they should be. And that means everybody buying a car, a house, taking out credit card debt, all of those costs go up. And so you probably want to step back and you say, with all of those costs and with all of those people hurt, who actually benefits from this bill? Well, it's clear. It's the absolute wealthiest people in this country who get huge tax breaks. This is a bill that every billionaire loves because it's going to provide more money into their pocket at the expense of everyday people who are going to be hit in a significant way. In fact, a lot of economists have said that this is probably, in terms of legislation, when you ask me the question of legislation I've had the privilege to be able to vote on over all these years, is that this is probably the largest transfer of wealth from low-income folks to the rich that we've had ever, perhaps.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk with you specifically about the healthcare costs because it's not just Medicaid that was cut. There were cuts to Medicare, to the Affordable Care Act. And so really, I've seen some estimates where around 20 million people might lose their health insurance, which is just a staggering amount of people. What is the healthcare system going to look like next year or in 2027 and beyond when all the cuts really go into effect? What does this mean for people?
Yeah, it's and you're right. It's going to take a while. They stage it out a little bit, and they did it for purely political reasons to put it after the midterm elections. But these are real. They're going to hit people in a real way. And when you talk about hospitals and healthcare facilities, they've got to make those kinds of plans. And when you look at the map of folks who are going to lose healthcare coverage, as you mentioned, it's not just Medicaid; it's the Affordable Care Act and Medicare. There are a lot of cuts across the board. If you put that across the map, it shows that the biggest impact are going to be on rural Americans, folks who live in rural areas. Michigan is a very rural state. Everybody thinks of the Metro Detroit area, but northern Michigan, the UP, as you know very well, is extremely rural.
And,
Those
and
hospitals,
big
and
supporters of Trump up there too.
they are. That's the interesting thing. That's some of the areas that voted most heavily for him are actually going to be hit the worst in this bill. You're going to have rural hospitals that already are struggling. It's tough to be in a rural hospital, and we're already hearing about many that are closing. Certainly, I heard from our rural hospitals in Michigan about how devastating this would be for them, and that they might not be able to keep their doors open.
Yeah.
And so think about people who live in those rural areas. They have to travel long distances already to get quality health care. It's going to make it even more difficult to do that. And people are going to have serious health issues, and they're not going to be able to get the kind of care that they certainly deserve because of the cuts that Donald Trump and the Republicans put in place for these critical health programs.
And I know we're still learning what's in the bill, even some of your Republican colleagues who voted for it. But one aspect that I have not heard very much about is that there was actually a prescription drug reform that had bipartisan support that would have cracked down on pharmacy benefit managers. And I know that's something that people were wanting to see, to get rid of those middlemen that up costs. And that didn't make it in the bill. The tax cuts for Elon Musk did. But could you talk to us a little bit about what that would have meant for prescription drug affordability? And is there any chance that this might be revived in some other form?
Well, I hope so. Prescription drugs continue to increase in price, making it very difficult for folks to afford that. And then when you've got these benefit managers as middlemen that are involved, we see that the costs are artificially high as well. A lot of people make a lot of money, not just in making the drugs, but actually distributing those. We've got to be able to really tighten those margins.
Mhm.
Those companies can still make money, but they don't need to make money hand over fist while folks have to make tough decisions about basic necessities versus making sure that they can buy their prescription drugs. So it's certainly my goal to continue to push that. We were able to make some serious reforms in the previous administration and the Biden administration, dealing with negotiating drug prices to allow folks to do that, for Medicare to do that. That brings down the cost of drugs. But we've got to take on the pharmaceuticals and everybody all along that pharmaceutical supply chain, not just the pharmaceutical companies themselves.
Right.
That's
Because, yeah, the PBMs, that's actually something separate from the
Mhm.
pharmaceutical companies, correct? It's just,
Right.
right. But the bottom line is that, we all continue to pay more for our prescriptions and soon for our healthcare premiums, I guess. So,
Yeah.
what kind of messaging can we expect Democrats to have about this budget bill and its impacts going into the 2026 election?
Well, I think you'll see it. It'll be a central part of the campaigns. 'Cause this is very clear to folks. And you look at public opinion polls right now. People who are familiar with with the bill, a lot of people still are not. So they'll become more familiar as time goes on. But those who understand and see what is in this legislation are overwhelmingly against it,
Mhm.
and that will be used against folks who voted for it. And as you mentioned, a lot of these Republicans had no idea what was in the bill that they voted for. They just knew that they better vote for it, or President Trump was going to come down on him, and he would turn his supporters against them. But that's going to be very problematic for them next year, come election time.
Why did you decide that you did not want to seek reelection again? And do you have perhaps anything to announce about your plans in 2027?
Well, no, I don't have that. I still have a year and a half. I would try to. I have to remind everybody I'm still here for a year and a half. That's a long time. But to answer your question, this is a decision that was a long time in coming. I started thinking about it last year. And actually beforehand, when I got elected, when I was reelected to the Senate, I served in the House before, as you mentioned, and this is in my second term in the Senate. And even when I ran for the Senate the second time, I said, I'm definitely running for reelection, but I'm going to really think
Have
about this
lost.
as to whether I will do it again. A believer that folks should serve in Congress as our founders saw it. As we come into citizens, we serve for a period of time, then we leave and turn the reins over to another generation, another group of folks. And so I felt this is time to turn the reins over to other folks. And part of my thinking as well is I want to make sure this seat stays Democratic here in Michigan. It's critically important. And so, one, I think we'll have a good Democratic year. We're going to talk about this big bad bill and the ways in which the Republicans are hurting everyday folks across the country. But in Michigan, we also have a deep bench. We have some very talented folks who are now running. We're going to have a spirited primary. All of them would make great senators. And so if you have a good bench and a good year, to me, it was a good time to step aside and allow the next generation to pick up the reins.
Well, I know that you have chaired the Democrat Senate reelection campaign, and so you know what it takes. Right now, there is a crowded primary for your seat with four candidates on the Democratic side. Congresswoman Haley Stevens, State Senator Mallory McMorrow, former State House Speaker Joe Tate, and then Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. Do you expect that you will be making an endorsement in this race?
Well, certainly not in the primary.
Okay.
I believe that in a primary, folks have to get out there and make their case to the people of the state of Michigan. But I can assure you, once we have our nominee, I am all in. We're going to make sure that that nominee wins the race. And it's really, it's the approach I took when I was the DSCC chair over the two cycles, which was successful. We said, let folks prove their mettle in a primary, get support from the people there. But in the meantime, we were still building the infrastructure for the campaign. And in Michigan, we won't know our nominee till August, as you know well. It's not a lot of time to pull a campaign together. So the committee, as we did last cycle when I worked with make sure that Alyssa Slotkin came across the finish line, we were building the infrastructure throughout the primary so that candidate, whoever he or she is, will immediately be stepping into a fully functioning ground campaign and the other aspects of the infrastructure necessary to win.
Right. And, Michigan is a purple state. Some people, may consider it a blue state. Obviously, state government at the executive level, we have Gretchen Whitmer and Democrats running the top offices. But our U.S. Senate elections, as you well know, have been extremely close. You were there with Joe Biden in 2020, waiting for the final announcements on everything. And Alyssa Slotkin's election against Mike Rogers last year was very close as well. Interestingly, she won, but Trump won the state. So Michigan is obviously a top hold for Democrats. We've heard a lot of talk about Democrats having a great chance to retake the House, not so much on the Senate side. So break it down for us. What are the must-win seats for Democrats if they were to retake your chamber?
Well, certainly we have to hold Michigan. So you've got to hold the seats that you have right now. So we have two states where Donald Trump won, where we have Democratic senators, and that's Georgia. John Ossoff is running for re-election. That's probably the top race for us. Then we have Michigan, of course, which is an open seat now. And then you look at the other states where we think we have a great opportunity. One is North Carolina. We had Tom Tillis, just some candidates there. It's possibly the governor, the Democratic governor is going to be running there. Would be a great opportunity for us, as well as Maine, where Susan Collins has been there a long time, but that's a state that voted for Joe Biden. So it's a Biden state with a Republican member of the Senate. So those are our top pickup opportunities. But certainly we're seeing other things develop as well. And we're going to be looking at those depending on candidate recruitment. But it's going to, be honest, it's not a good map for us. But the good thing we have going for us is that when you look at these Senate races, these are truly candidate versus candidate races. And candidates do matter. It's why when I ran the DSCC for the first cycle, we were in a midterm. And actually, we made history. Not only did we hold seats, we expanded seats. First time since 1936 that happened. And it's because we had candidate versus candidate races. The second go around, this most recent one as DSCC chair, we had several states that voted for Donald Trump and yet elected Democrats in the Senate in Michigan and Wisconsin, Nevada, as well as Arizona. So candidate versus candidate races means we have a shot in a lot more places to win. And we're going to be running aggressively. And when you have things like the big bad bill to run on, it certainly helps.
Right. Well, I know the conventional wisdom is that, off-year elections are going to be bad for the president. And there's a big wave in 2018, for instance, against Donald Trump. But you know more than anyone that waves don't just happen. You have to have good candidates. You have to have a message. And right now, we've seen that Donald Trump's popularity is falling, even on issues like immigration, which have been very good for him. Inflation is going back up, which used to be a good issue for him on the economy. But you're not seeing the corresponding numbers rising for the Democratic Party. So I'm curious, why do you think that is? And how do Democrats turn that around?
Well, part of it, you have to get candidates out. When you have the presidency, you have the bully pulpit. You can communicate. When you're in the minority in the Congress, we don't have a presidential candidate right now. It's difficult to have one or two people that are going to be kind of those spokespeople. That's why when I mentioned these Senate races, it's candidate versus candidate races. These senators, when they're competing in these states, will have that coordinated message and will be able to articulate that going into the campaign. But you look at the environment. You mentioned inflation going up, for example. The tariffs and the absolute chaos that Donald Trump is putting into the economy with tariffs that are on, they're off, they're on, they're off. People can't function in that kind of environment. You're starting to see prices go up. And that's impacting the price of cars. As for Michigan, as you know, Canada is a major trading partner for us in Michigan. The auto industry moves parts back and forth from Canada to produce automobiles. The tariffs are going to raise the prices of cars, which let's say right now, they're pretty expensive already. And then you're going to put even more cars out of the affordability range for increasing numbers of Americans. You're seeing used car prices now are skyrocketing as a result of that as well. And it's happening all because of Donald Trump's policies of chaos when it comes to international trade. And that's going to hurt people. And when people are hurt, they're going to turn out and vote against Republicans.
But what is besides messaging against Donald Trump, what's the vision that Democrats have? What are the reasons to vote for Democrats next election?
Well, I think we use these kinds of issues to show the clear contrast to where we are.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about healthcare. Healthcare is a primary difference. When you have a party that has always fought to make sure that everybody, no matter who they are, no matter where they live, have access to quality, affordable healthcare. That has been the Democratic Party. And we're seeing the Republicans have proven exactly where they are with this bill that they just passed, where they're slashing healthcare from tens of millions of people here in our country. That's a positive message. It's a message of standing up for everyday people to be able to get jobs and opportunities. It's about making the kinds of investments that we need in our country so that prosperity can be shared broadly, from the clean energy investments, for example, on scientific research. Scientific research provides cutting-edge breakthroughs that improve people's health. We have a lot to run on. The contrast is very clear. And when people see that the Republicans have really misled them in the last election as to who they're for and who they're against, they're going to realize that Democrats have always been there and will continue to be there in the future, and that actions speak louder than words. And the Republicans' actions are going to give a great deal of power to our message in the future.
Have you heard from any of your constituents who have buyer's remorse over their votes for Trump back in last year's election?
I have, yes, indeed. I definitely have. And a lot of folks and business owners and others, particularly, it's surprising to me because Donald Trump certainly talked a lot about the tariffs. That wasn't something he did not talk about. There's not a surprise. And yet when people are being impacted and businesses in my state are getting hit because of these tariffs and their business is hurting and their ability to hire. I mean, I have a lot of business owners and small businesses as well. They're going, with this chaos, I can't hire anybody. I don't know what the future is. That's not what I was expecting from Donald Trump. He certainly hasn't delivered. And you're seeing that in the polling numbers. His numbers on the economy are just are falling every day. They continue to fall. And if he continues this level of chaos in the economy, it's only going to get worse. And people are not going to be enthused to vote for him, and are actually going to then want to put a check on him. And that's what this election will be. Right now, you've got Republicans in complete control in Congress and with the president. I think Americans realize that you need to have a check on that. Our founders were really brilliant when they said the key to maintaining a strong democracy in a country is to have a system of checks and balances. We don't have checks and balances right now. It's completely unbalanced, and the Republicans are using this power to hurt everyday Americans. I'm confident that come election day next year, checks and balances are going to be restored.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate that Senator Gary Peters has taken some time for us. I know you're very busy today, and please, we would love for you to come by, and especially to talk to you about, the upcoming election and perhaps what you're doing afterwards.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me on. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Senator.